Hey, y'all. If you've followed me on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube for a while anyway, you'll know that 2 years ago this month, I finished my Gatton CNC build. So I figured that this being the 2-year anniversary month, I think that I'm knowledgeable enough on the Gatton CNC that I own anyway, to go ahead and give a review of the Gatton CNC kit, the build process, the build experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, anything I would change about the kit or my build process, or anything else, mistakes I made, or things that I think need improvement. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, let me say straight up front that yes, Dave Gatton is a friend of mine. I was fortunate enough to go to Atlanta in late March and early April of 2017 and not only meet Dave, but he generously allowed me to stay at his house for 4 days for the Atlanta Woodworking Show in 2017. So I've known him, I've met him, I've had dinner with him, I've had breakfast with him and lunch and, snacks and what have you. So yeah, I am slightly biased. However, I'm also honest enough to where I think that I can be critical if I need to be, and there be no bad blood. Now, if you're just joining this video to get my opinion on the Gatton CNC and see whether or not I like it, or just what my opinion is overall in general, let me go ahead and just say straight up front, this is going to be a very positive review. Yes, I like it. One step further, I actually love it. And if I had it to do all over again, I'd gladly do it all over again. In fact, if I ever get my shop built, there may be a second Gatton CNC in my future. So, if that's what you tuned in to find out, whether I like it, I love it, I want more of it, the answer is yes, yes, and by the way, yes. So thank you for watching. If you are here, however, to see a little bit more about my build, what I did, what I didn't do, why I did some of it, why I didn't do other things, then stick around and we'll get into that right now.
The Gatton CNC kit comes with all of the CNC cut parts necessary to assemble the machine. There are very few parts you need to make yourself. If you can follow builder's plans, assembly is fairly straightforward. If you have general woodworking knowledge, can cut accurately, measure accurately, and can build straight, level, and plumb, the kit will basically almost assemble itself. As with any other kit, there's a little bit of final finishing, sanding, maybe a little bit of filing and drilling that you'll have to do on your own. Dave calls out all of the specialized parts and materials that you'll need to complete your build in the builder's plans. Watch Dave Gatton's build videos. They are the official build videos of the Gatton CNC.
Okay, so let's talk about it. The good. For the price point, I don't think you can beat it. It's not a production machine. If you think that you're going to buy this machine and be running feed rates of 300 inches per minute, cutting full depth through 3/4 inch plywood in one pass, this is not the machine for you. If you are going to be focusing on cutting metals, machining aluminum, brass, steel, this is not the machine for you. If you're thinking about going into high volume production, this is not the machine for you. If you're a home hobbyist, if you're a retiree, if you're new to CNC and you're just getting started and just learning, this is a great machine. I personally think that there's It's the best bang for the buck out there. It is 100% customizable in length and width. You are only limited to the length of lead screw. Now, the lead screw that Dave calls out in the plans is 5-start, 1/2 inch, 10 thread per inch Acme lead screw. That is sold in 6-foot lengths. I've not yet been able to find longer lengths, nor would I want to, because then you really would get into whipping. My machine right now is a 48-inch depth, meaning I have about 33 to 34 inches up here of usable Y cutting capacity. I have a 50-inch wide cutting capacity in X. If I had more room in my shop, I would have gone wider and I would have gone longer. But as it sits right now, I'm in an overglorified 8x12 garden shed. Those are outside dimensions. I don't have room for it. This machine takes up half of this shed. Now, when I get my new shop built, I may very well make a longer CNC table for it. If you decide you want to step up to a larger diameter lead screw or buy some expensive ball screws and go with a longer table, that is certainly an option. And that's the beauty of the Gatton CNC. If you have never done this before, you're new to CNC, you can build, according to Dave's plans, a machine that can be built out of a full sheet of plywood and the kit. Build it, get the experience of building, learn the machine, get some projects under your belt, and if you outgrow it, you can expand on it. You don't have to invest in a whole new machine. It's 100% customizable to your needs, your wants, your size limitations. I can't think of a better bang for the buck machine out there. Yes, there are faster machines. Yes, there are more rigid machines, but not for what I have invested in this. That leads me to another question I get asked a lot. How much do you have invested in it? How much is this going to cost me to build? Average is right around $2,000, maybe a little bit more. Now, I'm speaking in 2019 dollars. That's not to say that that's what yours is going to cost. Everybody has sources for their materials. Everybody has different shipping requirements, different shipping restrictions and limitations. I also know that for those folks up in Canada, it's going to be a lot more expensive because there are certain parts that are very difficult to get in Canada, i.e. this lead screw. It's very difficult to get, and when you do find it, it's expensive. Know that going in. But for a machine that would cut this size would cost me a heck of a lot more than the roughly $2,000 I have invested. I'm not showing my Xylatex drive box, mainly because it's no longer available. Jeff at Xylatex has discontinued this drive box. The gantry front, rear, top, and bottom panels. I'm working with small benchtop tools right now until I get my shop built. So I don't have facilities to cut down a full sheet of plywood. So I cheated just to give folks who are in a similar situation an idea as to how to do this if you don't have the right tools. I can't rip a sheet of plywood. So I did the next best thing. I went to the people who can. I went to a local cabinet shop. I gave them my measurements and I said, I need these panels cut out of FAS cabinet grade birch plywood. How much? I walked out in my area. I walked out with the parts I needed cut to size for $40. I then brought it home and carved the Gatton CNC logo on my old CNC router. So there's an option if you don't think you can make these cuts to cut the top panel, the bottom panel, the outer gantry front and rear panels and the inner gantry front and rear panels. Make friends with a cabinet maker. They can hook you right up. Now let's talk about some of the design of the Gatton CNC. Yes, it's a plywood machine. If you've done any kind of investigation at all into the Gatton CNC, you know that it is a plywood machine. All of the CNC parts that come with the kit are made out of pure bond plywood from Columbia Products. The only items that it doesn't come with, it does not come with the table, the stand, the gantry front, top, bottom, and rear panels. That's for two reasons. Number one, so you can customize the width and length to your needs, to your space limitations, make it as big or as small as you'd like, and reduce the price of the kit and the price of shipping. These are all real simple rectangular cuts. If you can cut plywood down to the dimensions specified in the plans, the builder's plans, and the material list that Dave calls out in the plans, you can build one of these CNC routers. Now, that brings up an issue, folks asking, what about strength? It's a little bit deceptive when you take a look at this. You're looking at what is a 3/4 inch thick piece of FAS cabinet grade birch plywood. What you're not seeing is that there is a second panel of the same material. So I have two pieces of 3/4 inch FAS grade birch plywood laminated together here. The same thing on the back side. So we have two 3/4 inch panels laminated together, and on the back side, two 3/4 inch panels laminated together, giving it strength up here, giving it strength in the center of the gantry. If you'd like to see a demonstration of that strength, I'll go ahead and put a link in the description box below to Dave Gatton's little video where he actually takes his gantry for a test ride. And what I mean by that is he is actually sitting on the gantry running it back and forth as he talks. I have never had a strength issue with the Gatton CNC. Not once. In 2 years of use. The plywood machine is a great home hobby construction material. Are there faster machines? Yes. Are there more rigid machines? Yes. But not at this price point. Okay, another real common question I get is about the aluminum rails here. These are the aluminum rails on my y-axis. They run front to rear of the machine. And I have 6 guide bearings on each side. And that's what the gantry rolls back and forth on. And what I'm asked is, how is the aluminum holding up? Should I use steel instead of aluminum? Because steel running back and forth on this aluminum bearings is going to on this aluminum rail is going to wear them out. Well, I'd like to draw your attention to this black surface up here. Now, in my Gatton CNC build series, I did a few things just to see if anybody would notice, and then didn't mention them. Just to see if anybody would call me out on it. And nobody has so far. One of those things I did was this black surface right here, that Sharpie pen. Now, the Sharpie is not exactly the best tool in the world to try to mark the edge of a piece of aluminum, but it'll get by. My reason for doing this was so that I could watch and I could see how much these aluminum rails wore after I got the V-bearings on and started using it. And as you can see yourself, that black Sharpie is still there 2 years later. It hasn't worn off. Now, yes, the V wheels riding on the top of this will roll this edge over. This edge of the aluminum angle was already rounded. This edge was straight up and down. It will roll this 90-degree edge here over, form a little burr. It's supposed to. The same thing up on my x-axis. Once that burr is formed, you can see for yourself that black is still there 2 years later. Now, when I was at Dave Gatton's house in March and April of 2017, I took a few photographs of his machine, which I'm not going to share here, but Dave will gladly. I took a few photographs of his machine, showing a few Sharpie marks he put on the top of his x-axis for mounting this aluminum angle. And when I was there, those marks were still there. Dave will tell you today those marks are still there. My point in all this is, it's not wearing the aluminum at all. As you can see, that black Sharpie mark goes the full length of this rail. It also goes the full length of my x-axis rail up above here. The full width of my x-axis is a black Sharpie mark, and that Sharpie mark is still there. It did, again, roll over this edge. There is a slight burr, maybe 0.02 of an inch. But once that burr is formed, that's it. There is no more wear. So, I'll let you be the decider on that. You can spend money on steel and try to grind it, try to straighten it if you'd like. If you use the 6061 T6 aluminum that Dave calls out in the builder's plans, and you don't crank these bearings down to 150 foot-pounds, they do not need to be tightened that tight. You will have no wear on your aluminum rails, other than rolling this lip over here. And that's it. So I hope that settles that question. I think I'm going to surprise a few people by saying that one of the mistakes that I made in this build was this horseshoe-shaped cutout up front. Now, when I first built this, I had plans on mounting my rotary axis down here and to be able to position my gantry far enough forward that it would overhang the center of the chuck and tailstock and be able to cut back and forth. And that is the case. It does perfectly for that. The problem is it's not wide enough. That's the major issue I have. The size I made my table, I have 32 inches from here to here on the inside. Now, when I made this cutout, designed this cutout, I had no idea what kind of a rotary axis I would be mounting in here. So I didn't have any sizes. I had several plans. I had several ideas of what kind of rotary axis I was going to put in here, but I had no idea how big it was or how much room it was going to take. So I thought 32 inches would be more than enough. But by the time you get your head unit mounted here with the chuck and your tailstock mounted down here, even though I have 32 inches from here to here, I can only chuck a piece of material in here about 15 3/4 inches long, which is just enough to cheese me off. So if I had it to do all over again, I would not have put this cutout here on this side of the gantry. I would have adjusted how I made my table so that I could put it front to rear in the center here and mount the head unit up here and the tailstock down there. That would also necessitate me being able to get all the way around the machine, all four sides. And in this tiny shop, again, my interior dimensions are slightly under 8 foot. With 2x4 framed walls, that's what, 7 inches off of 8 feet? You can do the math from there. So I've got less than 8 feet here inside, which gives me about 17 inches on either side to get around, which just isn't enough. Putting a headstock down there would be a major pain. So if you're thinking about making this cutout, and I apologize, I know a lot of you have. If you're thinking about doing this for a rotary axis, do know you're going to be extremely limited as to how big of a piece you can mount between centers in here. One of the more common questions I get asked, believe it or not, is how I got the Gatton CNC logo carved into the front panel on my CNC before I built it. Well, the simple answer is this is my second CNC router. I built the old shoestring budget CNC in 2015. So I had that available to me. I went ahead and I got the Gatton CNC logo cut in the front panel before I took the old CNC apart. So that should answer that question. Another question I get asked a lot is about my spoil board. Now, if you watched my build series, you will know that I cut strips of MDF to fit in between my T-track strips. Then I glued them directly down to the table. And I was immediately flooded with questions about what are you going to do when you have to replace one of these? You've glued it to the table. My stock answer has been and remains, why would I want to replace one of these? You can see I don't baby my spoil board at all. It's got screw holes in it, it's got cuts, it's got all kinds of gouges. And to be fair, I'm about ready to resurface it. I think I have about another 2 resurfacings I can do on this spoil board before I'll need to start worrying about it. What I will do is surface it, then glue strips of 1/4 inch thick MDF over the top of these, screw them down, let that glue cure, pull those screws, surface that, and drive on. I should never have to remove one of these strips of MDF. And if for some reason I should have to remove one of these strips in MDF, it's on a CNC table. I'll just cut it out. So it's not a problem. I should never have to remove one of these strips of MDF. It will simply become the base for another surface that I'll glue on top of it, surface that, then drive on. I have no regrets about doing it this way. None at all. Okay, so let's get into it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Well, I want to start it by saying that there is no ugly, other than things that I've done. I've knocked some chips out of this. I've got a very, very small shop, so things like broom handles have fallen down and I've scratched up the finish and what have you. So that's about the only ugly. The good. The Gatton CNC is customizable 100%, as I've already said. You can build it to your size limitations, your wants, your needs. You can make it as small or as large as you can find the parts to do. It's totally up to you. The bad. I can't fault the kit. I really can't. And I gotta be honest here. Sorry, Dave, but I looked for stuff. I really did. After so many years of working in cabinet shops, furniture shops, working on job sites, building and installing, I really tried to find something wrong and I just couldn't. It's a case of it was designed very well. The execution of that design, the parts were cut very well. It fits. It works. That's all there is to say. Now, I said something a second ago. It's a kit. Please remember, there is some, with any kit of anything, I don't care what it is, there is some final fettling, finishing, maybe a little sanding here and there, maybe filing a little here or there. There is a little bit of that. You will have to drill, for instance, the holes in the Z plate and on the bottom of your gantry plates to accept the screws there to adjust the bearings. You'll have to drill those. But I can't emphasize this enough. If you go to Dave's website and you click on the page and you watch his build videos, he goes through every step. Those are the official build videos for the Gatton CNC kit. Take your time. Don't try to binge watch them all and think that you've got the build process down, because it just doesn't work that way. As you get to one sub-assembly, you're ready to start on something else, watch the video for that. Print out the builder's plans for that section. Take it with you. There are several things that you will need some of the detail shots from the plans. The plans are very well thought out. The plans are very well laid out. On each page of the builder's plans, each main page of those builder's plans for each section, there is a table of all the materials you'll need. On the main building plans page, there is a table with other components and parts that you'll need. Look at the part number. Those are live links. Click on those links and it'll take you right to the website so you can see exactly what Dave is calling out in these plans. Those are links. Use them. If you branch out on your own and go off in another direction, that's basically on you. Yes, you probably could make this rack and pinion. Yes, you probably could change over to ball screws. But again, that's not what it was designed for. So that's on you. You'll be doing your own research and development. Now, Dave is my CNC Obi-Wan. He has forgotten more about CNC than I've ever learned. He has designed more than one CNC router that he has built, sold parts for, sold kits for. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to design a CNC router. And I say that as somebody who owns one of the products he designed, not because the guy is a friend of mine. I like the Gatton CNC a lot. I probably shouldn't admit to this, but I have been contacted by 2 other CNC manufacturing companies wanting to send me a machine so that I could do videos for them or just to review their machine. And I've told them all that unless they could offer me something better than what I have right now, I wasn't interested. Now, I don't know what it means, but I've not heard from them since. I'm not interested in replacing this with something that I think is of lesser quality. Would I do it again? In an instant, without hesitation. Do I think it's worth the money? Yes, without hesitation. This is the best bang for your buck out there. You can't find a machine that is this customizable, that can cut this big for this type of money. It just doesn't exist. I have a 50-inch cutting capacity here. I can throw a half sheet of plywood up here and start cutting. You're not going to touch that for what I have invested in this machine. So, am I biased? Yeah, I'm very biased. One last thing I'll say before I start wrapping this up is, if you're still not sure about the aluminum rails versus steel rails, go ahead and use steel rails if you want to. Go ahead. But know this. Every Gatton CNC kit was cut on a Gatton CNC that uses aluminum angle for linear rails, and they're the same rails that Dave first installed on that machine in 2016. That should be the final testament. Your kit was cut on a machine using aluminum rails that were installed in 2016. So I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, remember, today at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be hosting live Q&A number 12, all about my Gatton CNC and my Gatton CNC build experience. Now, I didn't get super heavy into the build process in this video because I've created a playlist of every video in my build and accessorizing series. So I'll put a link to those two playlists down in the description box below. I'll also put a link to Dave Gatton's homepage right at the top, where you can get information on a Gatton CNC kit of your very own. Now, don't forget, today at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, for live Q&A number 12 on the Gatton CNC build series. That's a great excuse to go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. And go ahead and hit that little bell right next to the subscribe button. That way you'll get a notification when I post a video and when I go live for a Q&A session. So, as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch. Y'all take care.